Joining me to discuss this is Damon Johnston, the Victorian editor for The Australian. Damon, thank you for your time. You are the resident expert, sadly, I think, for you, in all of this. This has been, I think, the fifth IBAC report where the Premier's name has been involved. You've followed it for a long time, as I know you have. What did you make of the findings today, and what do you think will come of this final report?
Good evening, Peter. Well, I think there are two themes that emerge from this report. The obvious one, and it's the one that's, people are obviously turned to, is the evidence that IBAC has unveiled after a 5-year investigation, that two councillors at Casey in the southeast pocketed more than $1 million between them from John Woodman. In return, they gave John Woodman's development companies favourable planning and zoning decisions, according to IBAC. Now, the likelihood is that those three gentlemen, Woodman, Sam Aziz and Jeff Ablett, could face criminal charges. The IBAC today confirmed that the report and the underpinning evidence would be sent to the DPP for consideration. So on one level, that's the story that everyone's leapt to. However, in my view, the most important finding from this report is the one that points to a broader grubby political culture in Victoria. It's important to recognise it's not just limited to the Labor Party. John Woodman also donated heavily to the Liberal Party. However, it is largely focused on the Labor Party because they've been in office. And as you correctly pointed out, one of the criticisms that's raised in this IBAC report is privileged access. Now, IBAC has revealed that that essentially involves Woodman and people like Woodman donating to the Labor Party and then getting access to Daniel Andrews and his front bench. And now, if you go back into the reads of this report, it does reveal that Woodman started cultivating privileged access to the Labor Party when they were in opposition in 2014, in anticipation of them winning the November 2014 election. They won, and he got his privileged access.
Help us understand why, if Daniel Andrews was a Premier in any other state with a watchdog like this, we would have publicly seen his testimony. We've seen that certainly in cases in New South Wales. Yet in Victoria, again, his name has been thrown around in relation to 5 separate IBAC investigations, but we don't see him ever appearing on the stand under oath giving evidence. Why is that?
Yeah, good question. So IBAC's answer is as follows. They say that for someone to be put in the stand in public examination, they have a higher threshold, a higher legal threshold than some of the equivalent anti-corruption organisations interstate. They basically say that Andrews they must have had evidence of real of suspected corrupt activity to have justified putting the Premier in the stand in public. That said, what they have revealed about Andrews is, whilst they've cleared him of any adverse commentary, they have revealed that he does run a government that has presided over a culture of fostering donations from developers and then rewarding them with access. Why else do developers need access to the Premier and his ministers and pay good money for it? So we now know that Andrews has testified in private in 3 separate anti-corruption inquiries. Operation Watts, which was into branch stacking within the Labor Party, the Adam Somyurek investigation, in other words. We know it was Operation Daintree, which was the awarding of $1 million contract to a health union. And we now have confirmation that it was Operation Sandon. And there's a 4th one too. This is Operation Richmond, which is into the government's relationship with the United Firefighters Union. Neither Andrews nor IBAC have denied that the Premier has in fact testified in private for a 4th time. So hopefully that'll be revealed at some point in the next 12 months.
I've got to say, though, 3 of those all throw mud on the Andrews regime. We saw the Coate inquiry and hotel quarantine. The only way they got away with anything there regarding the loss of life, the expenditure and everything else was because no one could recall, no one could remember. I'll get to Lawyer X with you in a moment. The accumulation of all of this. Tonight is the Premier as bulletproof as he has been in recent months? Or do you think, and there's a bit of chatter around in recent days anyway, that that internally inside Labor, if not amongst his colleagues, the gloss is coming off and they're genuinely looking at Jacinta Allen as a move to the deputy?
Look, a couple of points. It's been very important to Andrews that he hasn't appeared in public, because if you recalled the hotel quarantine inquiry, now he did testify in public and he didn't perform that well. He had memory failures. He ummed and ahed. He said he couldn't recall. So and with the 3 investigations that we know that he's appeared at in private, we don't actually see the transcript. We don't see the video. All we get is the summary from IBAC of his evidence. So I think that's afforded him some protection. Now, that may not have been IBAC's intention, but I think that's been the effect, that Victorians have been unable to see him in the witness box, ducking and weaving, saying he couldn't recall, no doubt. Look, as to his standing within caucus, I've got no information to suggest that there's any move on. I think the Liberals would be unwise to underestimate him. I think he will hang around for at least the rest of this year, maybe well into next year. Don't forget, he's won 3 elections. He is the most formidable politician in the country. He runs the best election machine in the country, and the Liberals have still got their work cut out if they're going to beat him in 2026, if he hangs around that long.